Good evening, Ajahn.
Good evening, Langdon, and everyone.
And good evening, everyone else here in the hall. And to our online audience, thank you for joining us. Tonight's meditation is led by Ajahn Nissarano. Thank you, Ajahn, for coming down to lead tonight's meditation. And for the talk yesterday.
Yeah.
The format for tonight, if you're new, is that Ajahn will start off by giving some inspirational talk or suggestions or guidance around meditation, some tips or theme, and then we'll meditate until about 8:30 p.m. After 8:30 you can ask some questions if you want to. If you're here in the hall, you can just raise your hand and ask a question. If you're in the online audience, you can type your question into the live chat. Upcoming sessions here at the BSV, just a few special announcements because next Saturday is the first Saturday of the month, so it's our meditation day, the monthly meditation day, and this Saturday will be led by one of our special visiting teachers, Ajahn Vimoka. Some of you may be familiar with him. He's visited the BSV in the past, including last year. It's very energetic and entertaining, one could almost say. Monk, and so it will be an interesting day. That starts at 8:30 here. Unfortunately, that's not broadcast online. Sorry for the online audience. Ajahn Vimoka will also be giving the Dhamma talk on Sunday, though, so that will be available online as well as here in the hall. And hopefully, to be confirmed, I think, but hopefully also next Monday's guided meditation here. The only other thing upcoming is the Lunar New Year, which will be celebrated here on Sunday, the 11th of February, and that will be taken by you, Ajahn.
Yes, I'll be here, yes.
Oh, you'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be probably leading. Yeah.
Don't want to miss the party.
Yeah.
Finally, look, if you're here in the hall, just please make sure your phone is turned off or on silent. And I'll pass over to you, Ajahn. Thank you.
Thank you, Langdon. And I have a question for everybody. Welcome, of course, welcome this evening for the meditation. But are people feeling quite warm in here? It probably would be good. I remember last time I was here, it was boiled by the time I finished. I thought, wow. But I wasn't sure whether other people felt quite warm. So can be quite, because we've had in Melbourne, this is very unusual, we've had some hot weather, or warm weather, I think by Perth standards they may say, or mild. But so this is good. So it's good to have conditions as good as we can make them for meditation. We will never, has anybody ever got things perfect? And of course that if we wait until we get things perfect, we will never properly meditate, or very, very seldom, because life isn't like that. It is as it is, the experiences we sit down to, when we sit down to meditation, the conditions of the body and the conditions of the mind can be very different. They can be the results of the day. If we've been very busy, we can feel quite tired. Or, if we've had some difficult interactions during the day. It's going? Yeah, it takes a while to warm up, as they say. I know it's an air conditioner, but... So this is very important to be able to work with the conditions that we experience when we sit down to meditation. And this can be very, very helpful to be able to make peace with those conditions. And that's the theme for this evening, actually, is making peace with conditions. When we find, that things are not quite the way we'd like them to be, and the mind's not in the ideal state for meditation, it's not perfectly peaceful and relaxed and all this. So this is actually one of the things that I think is very helpful, making peace with what we experience. Usually, what happens? What happens when things are not quite the way we want? You don't do it. That's very, very true, actually. If things are not very pleasant or the way we like it, we don't do it. We're put off by it. Or we start the meditation with a sense of aversion to what we're experiencing. And that is not very helpful for the meditation, because it will, things will never be perfect, but also it will bring up that defilement. And that defilement is, of course, this aversion. And it's one of the hindrances to meditation. So we are trying to quell, trying to settle, come to peace, make peace with the conditions we experience in our bodies and in our minds. And of course, it's always going to be like this. Life is as it is. I call life, sometimes I say it's untidy, that it's not quite the way we would want it to be. And of course, that's largely because, why do you think things are like that? Any ideas? Why I think things are out of balance? That's a good point. But impermanence is what I was thinking of. But out of balance is part of impermanence. You know, that things change all the time. Our minds are changing all the time. Our bodies are changing all the time. And because of that, the conditions that we experience may not be ideal. But if we can work with those conditions and make peace with them, then we have a very good way to settle the mind, to bring peace to the mind when we're meditating, and actually in life too. Because sometimes we experience things, don't we? And I've seen this in myself too. And we really resist it, and we can go on for ages in the mind saying, no, it shouldn't be like this, there's no way, it's wrong, you know. And of course that makes no difference, except that it really stirs up our minds. And to be able to come to peace with conditions as they are here and now. I always say to people, you know, that doesn't mean that things won't change or we can't change. We can. So this is, impermanence is really the nature of existence. So when we're experiencing impermanence, it will give rise to what the Buddha called dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, not having things exactly the way we want with the body or the mind. Or it's not only with ourselves, it's with our relationships to others and to the world, really. We find that it's not quite the way we want it. And this unsatisfactoriness really can come up. And a lot of what do you think a lot of the unsatisfactoriness of life is driven by? Except, as well as impermanence, there's another quality that drives it. Yes, perfection. Yes, that's exactly it, really. It's perfection, expecting things to be, expecting ourselves to be in a particular way, expecting others to be in a particular way, expecting life to be in a particular way. And what is that way? The way we want it. And of course, life, the body, the mind, others and life don't necessarily comply with what we want, what we expect from ourselves, from others. So we often see that this leads to this sort of sense of unsatisfactoriness or dissatisfaction with the present moment, slightly uncomfortable with it. And this is actually very important to deal with when we settle into the present moment, because we can often find the residue of the day, the residue of what we've been experiencing, the momentum in the mind, can make us feel a bit unsettled, and the sense of dissatisfaction can be there. And of course, so these are things that we can look out for. Expectation is one of the things that drives our lives. And really, if we actually see what expectation is doing for the mind, it's often a disturber of the mind. And what's another word for expectation? Anyone got an idea? Exactly. It's wanting, it's craving. It's really, we have all these words in English and you don't think, oh, well, that's wanting or whatever. We think that's expecting. But actually expecting is wanting things to be in a particular way, wanting ourselves to be in a particular way, wanting ourselves to be smarter or funnier or more assertive or whatever it is that we want from ourselves and want from our relationships too. And of course, one of the, often people say, one of the biggest dead wastes is trying to change somebody else, particularly partners. You can go for it, give it your best, but it will be, usually it's not possible to change others. It is hard enough to change ourselves. So I think we should work on that area. And of course, when we have expectations, one of the quotes that I like from the Buddha that really puts it very well, he says, however we think it will always be different. And I think that's a very good way to undermine these expectations, which are, these projections of how we want to be, how we want things to be, others to be, how we want the world to be. They're always going to be just a projection. The reality is very often very, very different. And sometimes that's laughable, actually. Sometimes you have an idea of how things are going to be. And like I remember I was doing this guided meditation for someone in hospital who was really, really sick. And I was doing a guided meditation on caring, bringing up caring. And we just got so far. And then the call of nature came. She had to go to the toilet now. And I thought, this is life. This is how life goes. And so we abandoned the meditation. But I just thought it was just so funny the way, things unfold. And in a sense, if we can realise expectations are just that, and they are nothing, that they're like a projection, then we can flow with things when they change, and also see the humour in them. Because there's quite a bit of humour in the way life unfolds, especially when it's unexpected. We have an idea how it's going to go, and then it goes completely differently. So this is interesting. And of course, with expecting, what comes with expecting? This is the other aspect of expecting. And nobody can get it perfect, really, to stay perfect. This is what our dilemma of human beings is, this desire for getting things permanent, so we can get permanent happiness. But, of course, that doesn't last. It changes, and we find ourselves, experiencing that disappointment that you mentioned, Auntie. So that's true. But I was thinking too, when we expect a lot, we judge a lot. Oh, there we are. I'm shouting now. Somebody's probably comfortably dropping off there, and yeah. So there we are. So when we expect a lot, often judging comes up, judging ourselves, judging whether we have succeeded in getting what we want. And of course, that judging is a very unpleasant aspect of life when we judge. And nobody enjoys being judged. And yet, when we develop a mind full of expectation, we will tend to go towards judging everything. Has it really fulfilled my expectation? Is it the AC? No. I was just thinking, oh goodness, it's an either or. So this is another aspect of it. There's a nice quote that I like from Ajahn Chah called "A Tree in the Forest." And he says, and I think this is a really lovely quote because it really puts it well, the essence of our practice is to watch intention and examine the mind. Intention, of course, what's intention? It's karma, our actions of body, speech and mind, intentional actions. And you must have wisdom. Don't discriminate, he says. Don't get upset when with others if they are different. Would you get upset at a small and crooked tree in the forest for not being tall and straight like some of the others? That would be silly, and that's true. Don't judge other people. There are all varieties. No need to carry the burden of wishing to change them all. Impossible. If you want to change anything, change your ignorance to wisdom. Now that's pretty good, isn't it, really? And of course, we are also one of the crooked trees in the forest too. And we also, we're always wanting to improve and change and finding it difficult to come to acceptance. And this making peace with things actually can bring about acceptance for us, which is very, very useful for the meditation. And it can bring that wisdom and understanding, acceptance of how things are at this moment, knowing that they can change. And this is an important thing especially with meditation, because when we come to the present moment, to be able to accept it as it is important. It has arrived, however it has arrived, with some tiredness, aches and pains in the body, with a cranky mind, whatever it is. This is in the present moment. And to be able to deal with these states of mind, these experiences in the body, without aversion, without making more hindrances, without making more difficulties for the meditation, is important for us. And so this is something that we can realize, that we can accept the present moment as it is. We can accept the difficulties that we've experienced during the day, the difficulties we find in the body, and just to make peace with whatever we experience. And also, when we make peace with things, it's like we're respecting things too, respecting others. When we want to change others, it's often not so respectful. But when we can accept others and ourselves, it's much more respectful. So this is something we can do with making peace with conditions. And I think this is something very, very useful for our meditation and also for our lives. To be able to do that when the situation is as it is, when the moment has come, and then to make peace with it. So that's the theme for this evening, making peace with conditions that we experience in this body, this mind, in our lives. So I'd like to, we can start the meditation as if people are comfortable, and we can, good, that's it. We can close the eyes And we can come into the present moment. We have nothing that we need to do for now, and nowhere we need to go, just to be present. We're on holiday from the past and the future. And in the present moment, we can become aware of the body just sitting here, whether sitting on a chair, a cushion, whatever. And just be aware of if it feels balanced. The head over the shoulders over the hips, and the feet and the hands feeling comfortable. Just arranging the body or adjusting the body if necessary. Now we can mentally relax the body from the top of the head to the tips of the toes, giving this warm, relaxing attention, starting at the back of the head, top of the head and sides of the head, soothing and relaxing that area. With our minds, giving it a mental massage. And moving the attention down the forehead to the face and the eyes around the mouth, and giving this warm, relaxing, soothing attention to the face. And moving our attention down to the neck, all around it, with this warm, relaxing attention. And bringing to mind the left shoulder, starting at the neck, and moving our attention slowly along the left shoulder, giving it a soothing, deep mental massage, allowing the left shoulder to really relax. And now bringing to mind the left arm, starting at the top of the left arm and moving our attention down the left arm, all around it, right down to the fingertips. With this warm, soothing, kind attention. Now bringing to mind the right shoulder, starting at the neck and moving our attention along the right shoulder and giving it a deep, soothing mental massage, allowing it to really relax. Now bringing to mind the right arm and starting at the top of the right arm and moving our attention down the right arm, all around it, down to the fingertips with this soothing, kind, gentle, warm attention. Now bringing to mind the back, starting just below the shoulders and moving our attention down the back with this kind, warm, relaxing attention, giving the back a mental massage. Now bringing to mind the front of the body, starting just below the shoulders and moving our attention down the front of the body, soothing it with this warm mental massage, giving warmth and relaxation to any areas that feel sore or tense or pressured, giving this relaxing, kind attention. And now bringing to mind the left leg, starting at the top of the left leg and moving our attention down the left leg, all around it, down to the tips of the toes, with this mental massage, with warmth and kindness, with healing. And now bringing to mind the right leg, starting at the top of the right leg and moving our attention down the right leg, all around it, down to the toes, giving the right leg this mental massage with this warm, healing attention. And now we can become aware of the whole body just sitting here in the present moment, experiencing the temperature, feelings in the body, temperature in the air, of the air, sounds, whatever we're aware of, one thing after another. And we can make peace with what we're experiencing in this body, in the environment, and in our minds, making peace with what we're experiencing, the conditions of this moment. And when the breath comes to your attention, we can make peace as we breathe in and make peace as we breathe out. So breathing in, making peace, and breathing out, making peace. And if the mind wanders off, we can remind it to make peace with the breath and come back to the breath. And we can even notice where we're aware of the breath. That can be quite a good reference point for the mind. As we make peace, breathing in and breathing out. coming close to the end of the meditation, so we can reflect on what we felt, what came up for us, and we can share that feeling. Maybe it's of peace, and maybe a sense of acceptance, of being really present with everyone here in this hall, with all those that are online, sharing this energy of the meditation with them. And we can expand that sharing to all those around wherever we find ourselves, either here physically in Melbourne or online, wherever you are, radiating around you, sharing this peace or sharing this making peace, the feeling of making peace, any stillness, settling, calmness, with all those beings in the area you find yourself, be they human beings, animals, unseen beings, insects, whatever it is, sharing this feeling, these feelings, and expanding that further and further until we cover the whole of this earth and all realms of existence. This is our gift to other beings for their happiness, well-being, for their peace of mind. And we can come back to ourselves and just reflect on this, on the meditation, how we are feeling now, and what feelings came up for us, and also what caused them to come up. Understanding the causes and conditions. Were we able to make peace with whatever we were experiencing, whether it be pleasant or unpleasant, just making peace with it? Were we able to do that? And we can finish the meditation with having the intention, the aspiration to develop more of this making peace with conditions. When we find the present situation, there's resistance in the mind or aversion in the mind, and particularly for settling the mind for meditation, and to make peace with all those others, with others in our lives and the situations we find ourselves in. And now ring the bell 3 times, and on the 3rd time, if you wish, to come out of meditation. And we can slowly open the eyes and move our bodies to make them more comfortable. Oh, that's it. Great. So, not too bad, I think, good. Not too cold, nobody freezing over there. Life's like that, it's sort of the extremes. You just try to get it right, and it's not easy to get things right for long. And you find that with sitting, don't you? Even if you're quite comfortable when you start out, by the end of the sit, you can feel that the body's not quite so comfortable. And it's no matter what sort of chair or cushion you get, it will be the same experience for us, that eventually impermanence takes over and it becomes not quite as comfortable as it was, as settled. And of course, when with meditation, if it becomes very peaceful, then we can let go of the body completely. And in deep meditation, there's no awareness of the body. And so in that case, it is then we don't need to pay attention to, we won't notice the discomforts in the body or whatever. And in fact, often when people come out of deep meditation, the body feels better than before because the mind has been in a very, very peaceful state and the body can look after itself quite well. Thank you very much. So are there any comments, questions or complaints from the audience here in the hall? And as I always comment, that's a good sign. Because if there are lots of questions in our minds, we haven't probably been so peaceful, or you made peace with the conditions that we're experiencing. So it's very, very helpful, rather than allowing aversion and resistance to push us around and to make the decisions for us. We can make peace with those difficult states of mind, resistance and aversion, and then go beyond them. But often they're pushing us around. Either that or desire. That's another one. Restlessness and also a worry and doubt. These are, and drowsiness and dullness. These are the 5 hindrances. So, I wonder, Langdon, if there's any comments, questions online.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Or have they made peace too?
There is one question.
Making peace.
It is, how can one incline the mind away from the defilements
Right.
Bit of a big one.
Yes, yes. How can one incline the mind away from the defilements? So that is actually our job as meditators, really. And the Buddha makes it very clear that these 5 hindrances are what blocks the meditation. And not only blocks meditation, blocks wisdom as well. So it is our job to work with these 5 hindrances to overcome them. And today was just one approach, making peace with conditions, to deal with that more resistant state of mind, that more averse state of mind, which you could say is coming from ill will, and unsettles the meditation, unsettles the mind. Because once we settle these 5 hindrances, then the meditation just develops very naturally by itself, because the obstacles are out of the way. So, of course, with sensory desire, that making peace with that can be quite helpful, and not wanting necessarily to follow desires that come up in the mind. Desires maybe to move, to maybe meditate later, or whatever, put things off. So this making peace can be quite helpful, even with those desires, because if we react to them, if we're pushed around by them, of course that will unsettle the meditation. But not to have negativity towards them, get out of here. So this making peace can be very helpful with desire as well, and with drowsiness and dullness too, because there is a big tendency, and I think some of you may have witnessed it, to fight drowsiness and dullness. And you may have seen, I have seen some quite spectacular examples of nodding. Have you heard of nodding, where people go, shoo, shoo, shoo. That's part of it. Yeah, and if you yeah, exactly. This is making peace is really another way of accepting what we're experiencing, because often we're not happy with the way things are at the moment. As I mentioned, they're not ideal. They're not the way we want it. But that is really good to know, because if you know that, then you know that you don't have to fight it. You'll go through it and then come out the other side with the mind rested, clarity, and settled to the awareness, the mindfulness, sharp. So that's very good advice from someone from their own experience, because these states of drowsiness and dullness don't last forever. And once they've passed, they're like the clouds in the sky. And when we, on an aircraft at least, go through those clouds, there's blue sky beyond. So this is how we can make peace with dullness and drowsiness. And restlessness is a very big problem for a lot of us, because we can be very restless with unsatisfied with just being here in the present moment. And the mind can want something, but it's not quite sure what it wants. And there's this sort of energy of the mind that keeps moving. But just to make peace with that, not to get into fights with states of mind. This is what we often do, isn't it? Start fighting with ourselves. Oh wow, then the meditation's really finished. because it's just going to be another fisticuffs with ourselves, with our own minds. And so this is important, to calm the mind and calm this restlessness. The Buddha often mentions using something that's very calming to settle restlessness. And of course, making peace is, for me, it's a very useful concept, actually, making peace, because it's not making war. This is the point with our the states of mind we experience. And of course, worry or remorse, that's another state of mind that keeps us very occupied and keeps the mind very stimulated or overstimulated with worrying about what we've done, what we've said, and all this sort of thing, how we've come across or whatever it is. So this is also another state of mind that we can just bring this attitude of making peace to, with these this energy of remorse or worry about what things that have been done and said, either by ourselves, by others, So this is, or oftentimes too, this sort of remorse is, I should have done that, or I should have said that. The post reflection after of things. We're always wise after the fact. We think, oh no, I should have said that, and I should have done that. So this is a way of settling it, with making peace with that energy. And the same with doubt, and doubt about, am I doing it right, the meditation? Can I do it? Is this possible? Just bringing this, making peace with this doubt too. So it settles the mind. Because all these hindrances are really just stirring up the mind. They are disturbers of the peace. And then when they disturb the peace, then the meditation can't settle down, the mind can't settle down. Because in the end, we are not doing the meditation, we're creating the conditions for the meditation to happen, for the mind to settle by itself. And you probably, all of you remember Ajahn Brahm's example of a cup. And if you try and make the cup perfectly still while you're holding it, forget it. It never will come to stillness. But if you put it down, then it just does by itself. And it's the same with the mind. But we need that sort of wisdom of how to deal with the mind. And this making peace with conditions is one way that we can allow things to settle by themselves, and then the mind to settle down. The big disturbers of the peace is the doer. We want to do the meditation. We want to make the mind peaceful. We want to make this and do that, get this and get that. And of course that is going to disturb the process and stir things up, because there's a lot of desire in that, a lot of energy in that. So thank you for that question about the how to deal with the defilements. And this is one way of doing that, making peace with what we're experiencing, knowing full well that it will pass too, because it's always the wisdom of impermanence is there too. We make peace with it and things will change for sure. All right.
Thank you, Ajahn. Are there any questions in the hall?
Any more comments or questions?
Yeah, I have another comment.
Oh yes, yeah.
Just share it with the online audience.
Oh yeah, there we are. They can hear it then online. Yep.
Requires practice.
The comment was, it requires practice.
It does, and that's a very good comment too, because that's the nature of the mind. We often think we're going to make something happen just like that. I'm going to get deep meditation, I'm going to get peace, I'm going to get deep wisdom, that sort of thing. But really it is practice, because as I mentioned, the mind has its own nature, and really we're working with that, and by practicing we're creating much more of a habit, an attitude that can be useful for our lives and for our meditation. So it won't happen overnight that we take on board this making peace with things, because our natural tendency, we talked about it yesterday, when there's any pain or discomfort, we're talking about sickness, the natural tendency is to fight it, to be averse to it. And that doesn't really help, because often people find that the big part in pain is the resistance to it. And once we stop fighting it, it can reduce the pain quite a lot. And this is particularly the case for people who experience chronic pain, but it's a little by little experience when working with the mind, inclining the mind in that direction and using it to create a habit in the mind, as it were, a different current in the mind. And this is quite possible for us to do. I had a very interesting comment today when I went to a Buddhist centre in the Dandenongs called Vimokaram. I haven't been there for a long time, but I've been there over the years, so it was quite an interesting experience. And this woman said to me, she was saying to me that she found that she was meditating and doing quite a lot of meditation, walking meditation as well. And she said, I found that I had no anger. And, there wasn't anger there when I was in particular situations in the family, or I think she worked in, not aged care, with young people. And she said there was no anger there. And then a friend of hers said, I thought this was very strange. She said, stop meditating and you'll see your anger. And she did. I thought, why bother? It seemed a very strange thing to do. I thought, if you're not angry, I would say, great, the meditation's working very well. I said, the only problem is if you think you're not angry because you think you're fully enlightened. Now, that may be a problem. Then, the advice is to, if somebody thinks they're fully enlightened, then to stir them up and see if anger comes up. And that way they can find out for themselves pretty quick, oh, I lost it. I can't be fully enlightened. But I thought it was a very strange idea because she really was getting the benefits of meditating, by not having anger in her mind and not being so reactive. And I said to her, what are you doing these days? She said, watching movies. I thought, that's what everybody else does. And that's what her friends are doing, actually. So she was very, very encouraged by this friend who said, stop meditating, you'll see anger. Who needs it? So that's an interesting comment. But as you said, it takes practice. And this is the way the mind is influenced, the way change happens, actually, in the mind. Not driven by I, me, and myself. Not driven by willpower. This is how we tend to look at life. It's driven by wisdom power, understanding the nature of the mind and knowing that anything that we repeat, that we incline the mind towards, that will become a habit in the mind, a tendency in the mind. And the more we repeat it, the stronger it will become. Some people are repeating negative things, and those habits are becoming quite strong in their minds, which is really unfortunate because we live with ourselves, we live with the contents of our minds. And if they're in a very negative state, this is not pleasant. Who wants to live with all that? Who wants to live with negative emotions, ricocheting around in the mind, making us uncomfortable in our lives? We don't need that. But if we're wise, we will incline the mind away from that. And that's the beauty of the Buddha's teachings, really. It's actually encouraging us going towards the wholesome, those things that are going to bring happiness, and away from the things that are unwholesome and bring unhappiness with them. And it takes quite a bit of wisdom to be able to distinguish those two, actually, the wholesome and the unwholesome. And so, but once we do, we're going in the good direction. And then the negative aspects of the mind, of our speech, of our actions, starts to reduce and can disappear. And of course, for a fully enlightened being, there's all those negative states of mind that are part of the human being are gone for good. And that's great news. It's possible. Great news. So, very good. All right, I think there's one more question.
Is there time for one more?
Yeah,
just
why
quickly.
not? Yeah, just quickly.
You mentioned the deep meditation states earlier where the feeling of the body, The body disappears,
Yes,
known as
yes.
jhana.
Yep.
So the question here is, in the jhana states, does someone always come out of a jhana? And what if someone passes away in a jhana state?
Oh, that's interesting. Have you heard of the jhanas? These are the deep meditations where usually the see you, good night, where the process is really some inspirational joy is brought up, a real energy in the mind that leads to this rapture, and then the mind and the body and the mind really too becoming very, very peaceful. And then the body can disappear, and then this happiness coming up in the mind, and this happiness becomes the object of the mind, this joy and happiness that brings the mind to a one-pointedness, and then into the deep meditations. And this stage that this person's talking about is when the body disappears. That's right.
They just asked about the jhana.
Yeah, about the jhanas. Yes, so in that experience, the five senses are gone. So the five senses, of course, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, they've gone. And the important thing, experience, and also what's gone to all the negative states of mind, the hindrances. So we're free of the body and free of these negative states of mind. And these are conditions for experiencing inner happiness and bliss that is beyond the usual human experience. And these are the very deep meditations that get more and more refined. You have 4 of them, and the Buddha actually, at the night of his enlightenment, he was in the 4th jhana, the 4th deep meditation, came out of that, and with a supercharged, super pure mind, became enlightened. And so these are remarkable states of experience, and they give us a whole lot of information about the nature of our lives and our 5 sense experience. That's our world, really. And for most people, the world of the mind is something that's completely unknown, and yet this is where our experience of the 5 senses is coming from. Really. This is where the happiness and all this power of mind is within each of us, actually. Just a matter of the causes and conditions being right. And sometimes people actually experience this out of the blue. They say, fluke it. They don't quite know how it happened. And they have these experiences that are just extraordinary, they're just absolutely amazing for them. And of course, if they have a tradition that understands deep meditation or talks about deep meditation, that can help a lot. And I know Ajahn Brahm, he said in his last talk, I think last talk we had, last Wednesday he gave a talk, I know it was the talk the week before, and he said he had a phone call from somebody who had heard his teachings years and years ago, and she said, thank you very much, because she said, when I experienced this deep state of meditation, I had no idea what it was about. I thought maybe I had a psychosis, even though it was very, very pleasant. She had no context for it. And so it's very important that someone like Ajahn Brahm teaches these jhanas. And also one of my other teachers, Ayakima, she used to teach the jhanas too, because this is the natural way for the mind to go. And of course, other traditions, you get it in other traditions too, other religions, and they interpret it very, very differently. They think of it as union with God and things like that. And I know Ayakima used to say St. Teresa of Avila, one of the Christian saints who experienced these sort of very ecstatic experiences, was actually experiencing jhana, and could very, very likely be the case. But how they perceive that, or how they understand that, will depend on the tradition they've come from. And the Buddha is actually seeing these as states of mind that arise due to causes and conditions, and to go even beyond those states of mind, using them to develop the wisdom that ends getting reborn. So that's that's it. So thank you very much for
Ajahn,
that.
sorry, the actual question was what happens if someone passes away in
Oh,
the
that's
jhana
right,
state?
passes away.
So just very quickly.
That's a
because we're
very,
9
very
o'clock.
good question. If someone passes away in jhana, they will be reborn in a realm of existence that equates to that jhana, whether it be the first jhana, second jhana, third, up to the fourth. And of course, you know, those realms of existence, first of all, like a Brahma realm of existence, so very ecstatic, very joyful, incredibly pleasant states of existence. And very interesting, because these Brahmas, because they've overcome, when you enter jhana, you overcome desire. They have no sexuality. There's no gender. They're all just Brahma beings. Isn't that a very interesting idea? I think it's amazing. So that's what will happen. You get a rebirth like that. So it would be quite amazing if you die in jhana, or if you practice a lot of it in this life, and then when you pass away, you tend to go to a realm like that. And if you have the wisdom that can look at that experience as something that arose due to causes and conditions, then you can start to see the impermanence of it, and you can also see that it will pass away, so therefore unsatisfactory. And you can see that it was a process. It wasn't driven by I, me, and myself. It was a process that happened, and that can lead to the big breakthrough to enlightenment. So possible that that can happen as well. All right, thank you very much for that. Yeah, great. All right, so very good. And we can finish off. Those who would like to pay respects to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, we can do that. It's a bit of exercise